educated on human trafficking at all? Okay, cool. So this is a good way to go ahead and get that started. So human trafficking is something that's not often talked about because we live in a culture where anything that's sensitive, we usually try to avoid it as much as possible. Human trafficking didn't become personal until I learned about it in the spring semester. So I'm going to go ahead and start with a video, and then that'll set the mood a little bit. So if at any point you feel a little bit uncomfortable, feel free to leave the room. It is pretty touchy.
Being taped up and you're naked in a dark room and your hands cuffed. It was, you don't know who comes in and who goes out. And I was really thinking that the person I came to see was a friend, and it wasn't. It was just a lie. And just being 2 weeks, no food, nothing, and you just smell like semen. And after that 2 weeks, it was the anger of life, that you don't like life at all. And it was straight into drugs and prostitution from club to club in Johannesburg. It was a very empty room. And I was like, wow, your room is empty. And she's like, oh, don't worry. As we go through the year, we're going to start buying stuff. And so I'm like, oh, okay. She walked out the room, and that was the last time I saw her. And then I think first 3 guys walked in, which was Zimbabweans. And then I was confused, and they just said, well,
just for the sake of time, we're going to go ahead and get back to the presentation. So I really wanted to kind of set the mood a little bit as to how serious of a topic that human trafficking is. So we're going to go ahead and look at the statistics a little bit. So trafficking primarily involves exploitation, which comes in many forms. So it could be forcing the victim into prostitution, subjecting victims to slavery, which is usually children, and also involuntary servitude, so which is basically slave. We're going to go ahead and look at the statistics. According to some estimates, you have 80% of trafficking involves sexual exploitation, and also 19% of that involve labor exploitation. So basically, those are usually common in third world countries, and a lot of it is happening here in our neighborhoods that we don't necessarily know about because this is a very sensitive topic. And also, there are approximately 20 to 30 million slaves in the world today, which is very shocking because that's not something that you hear about, that's not something that anyone talks about. And also, according to the U.S. Department, 600,000 to 800,000 people are trafficked across the international border. So based on everything that I've presented before, you guys know that I have a heart for international and anything like that. One of the things that really caught my attention was the amount of children that is involved with human trafficking. I don't know, how many of you guys have siblings? So usually kids who are involved in human trafficking are around 4 to 6 years old. And I'm going to go ahead and share how I learned about all of that at the end of my presentation. So going back, the average teen that enters sex trade in the US is 12 to 14 years old. And also many of these victims are runaway girls who were sexually abused as children, which basically that's not on them, so it's their circumstances which led up to that. Does anyone have any feels on that? What do you guys think about that? At such a young age? It's crazy, right? Okay, so moving forward, I just want to point back to why should we care about that? How does that affect me? I don't know anyone who's in that. This has nothing to do with me. I just want to point out that human trafficking is the third largest international crime industry. And also, I want to give the analogy of how we are the body and every member of the body counts. So what that means basically is that even though it doesn't affect me personally, but it affects the world that we live in, and it's very unfair to children who are being sex slave to like because of their circumstance, because of the fact that they don't have any protection and stuff like that. So I want to go ahead and talk a little bit about how I found out human trafficking and why I'm so passionate about it. So last spring, I went to this presentation, and this guy named Missionary Sam, so he's basically a missionary, and he goes in third world countries and rescue children who are in sex slavery and teens who are in sex slavery. And basically he has this foundation where he basically takes them out of sex slavery, build them homes, educate them, and a lot of them turn out really great. So when I heard, like, the reason why I became so interested in it is the amount of children that is affected by human trafficking. So we're gonna go ahead and talk about call to action, like what can you do? Because I feel like a lot of times when we talk about these sensitive topics, we kind of just talk about them, we give our opinions, and then we move forward. I think the biggest thing to keep in mind is just like bringing awareness. Like the fact that I talked about that, I hope that my presentation will basically plant that seed for you to go home and research about it. Like, what does that mean? How does that affect us in the United States? How does that affect the people that are around me? Like, and also use social media as a platform to really advocate for human trafficking, because believe it or not, it does affect our world and it affects those around us. And most people that are involved in human trafficking or sex slavery, they don't feel comfortable enough to share that. So just bringing it to light and bringing that, just bringing awareness to that will definitely just like educate others. So that is a call to action, is definitely just use your social media as a platform. When you see things about human trafficking, share it. Instead of posting a selfie, share a fact about human trafficking. That will definitely make a difference in someone else's life. Thank you.